Welcome to somexonair for the second time in English. Today we discuss about a book and a company which illustrates social business. The idea that social media isn't only related to communications and marketing, but are also relevant for other departments and activities in a company. So we ask which steps are necessary in order to become a social business. A couple of weeks ago, our partners from the Zurich University of Applied Sciences, ZHW in German, have published a book called Social Media Strategy, a step-by-step guide to building your social business. And I'm happy that one of the authors joins us today. She's called Kamalesh Lardi. Hello, Kamalesh.
Hello, Christoph. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for your time. The book includes several case studies. One of those case studies tackles Urail.com, where our second guest works as a customer engagement manager, and her name is Chantal Suckel. Hello, Chantal.
Hi, thanks for having me.
As usual, our audience on YouTube can send us questions, comments via Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus at somexcloud on Twitter, facebook.com/somexcloud on Facebook, and our Google Plus page is also open for your contributions. We'll collect everything and we'll bring it into the discussion later on. First, I would like to start with a definition. Kamalesh, how would you define social business as opposed to a business which isn't social? What does it mean to be social?
Well, Christoph, the way I would describe a social business is a company that has social media or social technologies deeply embedded or integrated within its operations to the point that it actually drives or impacts the business goals. It would also, for example, impact the business operations and add value to the organization as a whole. It would incorporate the customer's voice in its operation, so customer feedback and the needs and opinions of the customers, as well as measure on a strategic and tactical level. So it wouldn't just look at measures like likes and followers, but it would really look at measures that impact the business goals. And also a company where leadership is bought into, or there's a person in the executive management that's supporting social.
Measurement is an important keyword. We'll get back to that later on. The book which I mentioned, can you tell us more about the starting point? Why did you think this book is needed?
From working in the topic of social media and enterprise collaboration, as well as talking to various different companies and clients on this topic, it became very clear that social media was seen as a very either a marketing tool or a very operational level tool used to engage with customers. The challenge with that is that social media it stays at a very operational level or at the exploration phase, or is typically used for marketing campaigns and for corporate communication. It doesn't get to the point where it is able to impact business and provide sustainable or longer term returns. So from this I derived that it would be valuable to create a framework that provides information to companies on how to actually use social media, link it back to their business goals, and really look for sustainable longer term impact. So once I started developing the framework, I also teach social media strategy at the ZHW, and they were very interested in the framework because it was a pragmatic solution that could be applied, but it was also strategic, and so we decided to write a book together on this topic.
Now this framework is part of the book, apart from those case studies. Can you tell us more about the framework, about this tool?
The tool itself is divided into two phases. Phase one, which looks at how you can actually link social media back to your business objectives. So really helping companies identify what they want to achieve as a business, and then explore how social media or social technologies could help either directly or indirectly to achieve those goals. It also helps companies to identify ways to communicate with the executive management to make sure that they are able to secure support and investments to make sure that they can carry out these initiatives. And then we have phase 2 of the framework, which actually helps companies implement social media successfully. And that includes Enterprise 2.0, which focuses on internal communication within the company, and Business 2.0, which focuses on external or communication with customers. The book focuses on European case examples. So that's something quite unique about the book. You find very few books that actually focus on Europe as a region.
One of those examples is Urail.com. Now, Chantal, for those among us, among our audience who aren't familiar with traveling Europe by train, can you tell us more about Urail.com, about your company, about your products?
Of course. First of all, I would like to say shame on you if you don't know us. No, I'm just kidding. Urail.com is the online worldwide reseller of Eurail passes and Interrail passes. And with one of those passes, you can travel by train through Europe to up to 24 countries. So Eurail is the product for non-Europeans and Interrail is for Europeans. And so we basically deal with travelers who come from all over the world, and we do all of that from our headquarters in the Netherlands.
Now, we've heard Kamalesh's definition before for social business. Does it apply to Urail.com? In which regard would you say Urail.com is a social business?
I think that we are a social business because for us it's obvious to be social. What I think is important about an e-commerce company or about any company operating online is that transparency is becoming really, really important. In our company, customers really have a voice. We regularly discuss all the feedback that we get or all the type of questions that we get. For example, we have weekly lunch meetings with the entire company, so people, either they are in finance or in operations or in customer service marketing, everyone knows what's happening within our company and within what's being said on social media and things like that. So we value the customer contact, and we invest a lot in that. And in that perspective, we're a social company, I would say.
Now, your role, it's called, you're working as a customer engagement manager. Can you tell us more about what you're doing on a daily basis?
Yes, of course. My overall goal is to keep everyone happy. I strive to keep all the wannabe customers or travelers happy and looking after them in the buying cycle from A to Z and beyond. So from the first moment they encounter us as our company until way after they've returned from their trip. And specifically on a day-to-day basis, I am involved in many projects. And my goal in that is to look at everything from a customer perspective.
Now, one of your achievements is an award which you received from Mashable. Can you? What happened? Why did you receive this award, and what was part of this achievement?
Yeah, that is something we are very proud of, the small company that we are. We are a company of 25 employees, and there are many other companies who do social media, and I think they do it pretty well. So why we got this award? Well, first of all, it was a really surprise for us. We got nominated, and I think that was because we have many customers who are really surprised by the personal level of service that we offer them. When they send us a Facebook note, they get a reply within 8 hours in their own language, and it's really personal. If they have a question about train travel in a certain country, then the agent who has most experience in that will reply to them and give them tips and advice. And even though 2011 is only 2 years back, at that time it was seen as quite new, I would say, and that's why we got it, and we're really happy with that still.
Now, Kamalish, for the book, you analyzed several companies. What do you think? How is Eurail.com special or different compared to others?
One of the most interesting thing, first of all, we focused really on companies that are European based, and one of the things that was quite interesting about Eurail for us is the fact that they have embedded social media into their organization structure, or into their customer service structure. So it is one of the channels that they use, and they actually have defined processes around it and have stronger internal structures, or created internal structures that are quite strong for social use. So that was one of the key things. And the other thing was that it was very clear for them how they wanted to use this channel, and it was also very clear to them what the employees needed to have, or how employees needed to be trained in order to be able to use this channel. So we found that to be quite a unique example, and there are a few interesting lessons that also match with what was said in the book in terms of having a very human voice, for example, when engaging with customers, which is something that Eurail does really well.
For those who joined us later on YouTube, we're in the middle of a discussion about social business and Eurail.com. We have two guests, Kamalish Lardi. She has written a book about social business, and Chantal Sukel. She works at Eurail.com as a customer engagement manager. The next point which I would like to tackle is the question, we've seen Eurail.com, which both of you would define as a social business. Now, probably the majority of all the businesses aren't social yet by this definition. What is necessary? Which steps are necessary that such companies can transform themselves into social businesses? Is it money? Is it time? Is it easier for a comparably small company? Is a social CEO needed at the very top of a company? What do you think, Chantal?
Well, that's a good question, because until we received that award, I've never realized or still think that we have done something special, because it's just in our nature. It's something we started doing because it made sense. It's where our customers are in the social media, and I think that getting towards being a social business really has to do with the importance of customers. So what voice do customers have in a company, whether that's a large or a small company? I think we, as Eurail.com, we're a small company, and it has its advantages because we have less hierarchy, we have less bureaucracy, maybe. It's easier. The customer service manager is sitting right across the hall, and if there's anything, I can just wave, and it's easy to communicate. But I think it all comes back to, where does the customer stand in the company? Have you ever noticed that it's so weird in business nowadays that it seems like you've made it when you have your own office and when you never have to speak to a customer again? Because you start off low talking to the customers, and once you've made it, you never have to talk to a customer again. For us, that's ridiculous. I don't think you can really lead a company well if you don't have any customer contact.
What do you think, Kamalish? An example which Chantal brought up: people who don't want to face clients have it very difficult have a very difficult way to being a social business. Which other aspects do you think are relevant?
I think what Chantal says is very true. Sometimes companies tend to get very lost in their own internal structure and their own internal needs and daily operations, and they tend to forget the customer needs, and the whole point of existence is that they are here to serve customers. But when you look at social media, there are some companies, Eurail being one example, and other companies like Swisscom are very much more attuned to use. It's easier for them to use social media, maybe because they have more of an exploration culture. There's probably a younger generation or younger group of employees there who can push it through, who understand the technology a little bit more. But then there are also much larger group of companies that are not social savvy. And for those companies, I think it's really crucial for them to understand what they want to apply social media for in their business, what is their business context, really have a strong understanding for who the target audiences are, why they're targeting these people and which channels they exist on, for example. It's also quite important to have a good foundation within your own company. So to have the right properly trained people, the right policies and procedures, and have also the right processes internally to help you apply social media. Because as a business, there is a certain risk that comes with it, but there's also potential that you can maximize off of. So in order to make the most out of it, we need to make sure that you have these internal structures available. And also, I think having someone in the executive level who does either understand or even supports social as part of the business is quite important. Otherwise, it'll be really difficult to take this to the next level.
The question
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I agree with the last point completely. I think one of the things that makes Euro.com a social business is having the support from the top level. We are a very young company, and our CEO is one of the biggest how do you call that? She supports, she supports our social media use completely, and she's an administrator of our Facebook page, and she often looks at what's happening, and she really understands that, and that also makes my job easier because I don't have to defend or get so much trouble for doing new things on social media.
Can you tell us her name so that's easier to find her? Your CEO's name.
Of course, our CEO is Pauline Pierik.
Okay. The question of measurement was mentioned initially by Kamalesh. Of course, many people might ask, okay, we invest into becoming a social business, but what's our return? What do you answer to such questions, Kamalesh?
This is actually a very important question, and it's kind of one of the biggest challenges that exists within the social media use for business topic right now. What's the return on investment? For me, I think the best guideline would be to look at what your business objectives are and how you currently measure those business objectives, and link your social media initiatives very closely to that. So if you're using social media just for campaigns or just for a one-time effort, it's very difficult to show any kind of return on investment. But if you're using it as part of your business and it's clearly linked to your strategic measures within the business, then it makes it a little bit easier for you to be able to track and measure your success in that area, as well as to be able to find ways to link back. Not just measure the operational things like your number of likes and number of followers, but also look at things like the number of brand ambassadors that you have and what reach do they have. And so look at your measures from a more strategic angle as well. And I think that would make a huge difference in terms of identifying return on investment.
Chantal, what are you doing at Euro.com in terms of measurement, in terms of discussions about return on investment?
Well, apart from the normal analytics program, we do look at those, of course, and number of engagement rate, things like that. But and I realize this may not be the answer that you're looking for, that everyone's looking for. But I rather look at it the other way around, which is what would happen if we don't invest in being a social business. I mean, if we don't move forward, we move backwards, especially being an e-commerce company like we are. So if we wouldn't invest anything in social, which is still growing and getting more and more normal in the daily life of the consumer, then our competition would just take that away. So that is what I would say to people asking about ROI. What if we wouldn't? Instead of what if we do?
That's actually a good point to look at the opportunity cost of not getting involved as well.
Now, we discussed about urail.com. I would like to open up the discussion and ask you, Chantal, which other companies would you consider as social businesses, or which other companies probably inspire your work and urail.com?
It's funny. Many people probably look up to the bigger companies. They look at the Zappos and Apple and, as a bad example, Ryanair. I personally prefer to look at the small companies in which who are not internationally famous, but just to have a look around what they are doing. I don't have any specific examples, but occasionally I would just go into Google and search for a company that does either, for example, safaris or that does cruises, to see how they are performing, how they are working with customer service, social media, but also with design and even things like return policies. What can we learn from the smaller companies that are not subject to a lot of bureaucracy and who are still who are probably able to adjust faster to new developments. So I would say don't just look at the big players, but also look at the niche and the smaller agencies around there.
What do you think, Kamalesh? Which other examples could be useful, maybe also outside Europe? Because you mentioned that for the book you focused on European examples.
Actually, when I look at examples of good social media use, I look at it from various different levels. So if we are looking at company examples, so large companies that are applying it well within their organization and they've incorporated social well within the company structure, you can talk about companies like Coca-Cola, Harley-Davidson, Starbucks. So there are tons of examples that are well known. I also like to look at individuals. For example, when you talk about how to engage well with people or engagement tactics, there are people like Brian Solis, for example. You know, a few of those people who are quite like Guy Kawasaki as well. So they're really individuals, but very they've got a wide reach within the social arena. You know, even people like Ashton Kutcher, who's an actor, but he's very active on social media. So you want to really take a range of different examples and see what works and what doesn't work as well.
We received several questions from our audience, which I would like to bring into the discussion next. One question, Gino Brenny sent us this question. He's asking, how do social businesses recruit? You, Chantal, at Urail, how do your recruitment processes look like, and how social are they?
That is a super good and valid question, especially for us at this very moment. It's something we struggle with. Right now we're having a lot of new job openings, and we thought that our current website does not express well enough who we are as a company to be able to talk to people on the level that they think this is the coolest company in the world, I want to work for them. So it's not live yet, so we're still working on improving that so that we really express the social business that we are through also the recruitment pages, to be able to, even as simple as having all the vacancies have a tweet and a share button, but also being on LinkedIn, following people who might be interesting for us. That is definitely something we have to work on better. So I'm afraid I can't give you any pointers in that, because we're still learning too.
Is it an area which you also analyzed in the book, Kamalesh, social recruiting?
We didn't go into detail of social recruiting because it is a huge topic of its own. But what we do find at the moment, as well, working a lot with the ZHW, we do see a lot of trends in terms of recruiters cutting out the middleman and going directly to the market to find so company recruiters, for example, looking at LinkedIn to find potential candidates, doing a lot of analytics to find people with specific skills or the skills that they're looking for. So that's a major trend at the moment. But also companies can look at incorporating a lot of these elements within their recruiting process. At the moment, it goes probably as far as just, you know, doing searches and looking at people's profiles. But you do see examples in the US, for example, companies that actually go and look at Facebook accounts, or there are extreme examples where companies ask for your Facebook password when they recruit. So, you know, to see what your Facebook account looks like and things like that. So it's a huge area that we could explore quite in detail, actually.
Another question comes from Eric Blatter, and he would like to know whether it's actually the case that as a social business you don't have one social media team anymore, but you have social media savvy people in all the departments. Is it the goal which or the sort of one measurement indicator for a social business, that those social media savvy people aren't just in one corner, grouped in one office, but you find them throughout the company? What do you think, Kamalesh?
I think that's definitely true for a lot of companies today, even in more conservative industries like banking as well. You do find there are pockets of people throughout the organization who are more socially savvy, and employees are generally using social media, whether it's allowed for it or not, on the company infrastructure. So they use it via mobile phones. But I think it's in terms of official structure within the organization, the hub and spoke structure is growing as well in popularity. So where every department has ownership or control of their social presence, but it's centrally governed within the organization by one team. And this is also a good way to tap into those socially savvy people across the organization.
What's the situation at Urail.com in terms of social media knowledge? Is it available throughout the company, or do you still have one social media team which is specifically responsible for everything related to social media?
Well, we're an e-commerce company, so our business depends on being able to adjust to new things that happen on the web, and social media is a big part of that. So everyone at least has a basic knowledge of social media, as in they know what Facebook is and what it means if there's a complaint on Twitter, for example, or forums, and the power of the social customer. We even have our own private Facebook network, in which we internally use to share knowledge with each other and announce new projects, for example. So within our company, it's very broad within every of the different departments. In terms of ownership of social media, that's also a difficult question. I personally started our social media presence 4 to 5 years ago, and now it's been managed by my team, but also by the content team and the customer service team. So we all work together, and there's knowledge within every of these departments.
Now there's one more question from Gustavo Salami, who would like to know, I think it's a question for you, Chantal. He would like to know which tools you're using. Is it Hootsuite? What are you using in terms of analytics, monitoring? Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, of course. For Twitter, we use Hootsuite. We still have the free. We don't have any premium subscriptions yet, so we're just back to basic. For Facebook, because we get so many messages, we use the same tool as we do for our customer service. It's called iMail. And what happens is all the messages come into the big CMS as one new message, and our customer service agents, wherever they're located in the world, they can enter the system and just reply to it from an email, and it gets automatically posted on Facebook. For measurement and statistics, we use the normal Facebook Insights, and also a tool called PageLever, in which we can see which posts perform best. But basically, I use that as a database of all my old posts, because through that tool I can easily look at what I've posted 3 years ago on Friday the 13th, just to mention an example. So nothing fancy, really.
Kamalish, is it something which you also considered for the book? Did you talk about tools, or did you look into tools with regard to those case studies?
That was one area that we deliberately did not want to go into, simply because the book is meant to be more of a strategic aspect, and it was more business focused. So we wanted to actually take the focus away from channels and tools and platforms. But there is a section in the book that talks about how you can evaluate tools, the best way to find the right tool for your business need and to target your group of customers or stakeholders. So we do address evaluating tools, but we don't actually go into individual tools and which ones are good or bad or how to use them.
Okay, with my last question, I would like to ask whether there are blogs, people on Twitter, conferences, other resources which you are using and which other people could use as well in order to stay up to date in terms of social media. What can you recommend, Chantal?
I think I read pretty much the standard blogs like Mashable, of course, Social Media Examiner. I look often at just the BBC travel section just to stay updated, and I find Twitter as a whole very inspiring. Also, but that's probably very good for the travel industry as well, as Focusrite and also eMarketer, because they do a lot of studies and I can use their statistics to help build cases, for example.
Which recommendations do you have, Kamalish?
I look at a lot of individuals, so bloggers who have quite interesting content. So internationally it would be people like Brian Solis, Jeff Bullas and Jay Baer, Social Media Examiner as well. Locally people like Mike Schwede and Sue Frank, and so these people are quite interesting to follow. And I absolutely love Twitter because it's an excellent way to get information on a specific topic very quickly and to reach out to as many experts, and to such a wide range of knowledge is available on Twitter. So I'm a big fan of interacting on Twitter. So yeah, those are the few that I can recommend.
Good. I think in order to summarize our discussion, or one important learning, I think, was that both of you mentioned that instead of talking about return on investment, we should or could start talking about the opposite, or the question, what happens if we don't invest into social media and if we don't become a social business? And very soon we might realize that this isn't an option. Many thanks for your time, Chantal and Kamalish.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for watching on YouTube as well. This video, as usual, will be available tomorrow morning on our YouTube channel, on our blog, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, wherever you can find us. That's it for today. Many thanks, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.